This is a bombshell for a family who's been waiting 25 years for answers.
From 1990 to 2015, no one knew just what happened to Rosemary Diaz.
There is news tonight. Her body may have been found.
After 25 years, the remains of the 15-year-old located just miles from the store where she went missing.
And literally a third scope with a backhoe is when we got Rosemary's remains after 25 years.
Their first hint, they unearthed this ring, the one Rosemary received on her quinceañera.
My heart just fell, and I just knew that it was her.
It would be months before DNA tests confirmed it, and even longer before Rosemary was finally laid to rest.
By knowing that at least her remains were found, we know that she's in heaven and she's looking down on us and not suffering. That's the only consolation that we have.
November 24th, 1990, Rosemary disappeared while working alone at a corner store in Danavan. For a quarter century, no one knew if she was dead or alive. Investigators still aren't sure how she died.
And we can't even prove at this point that she was murdered. All we know is that she was buried there.
Detectives labeled Frank Merlos Rodriguez Jr. a person of interest only after his death. Only after one of his relatives came forward. That led to them interviewing his wife, Margarita Rodriguez.
I should have went to the police when Frank told me I heard a girl, and you know when he said that he took the girl over there, I should have went to the police and tell me, but in the meantime I'm gonna be dead too.
She told detectives Frank abused her physically and emotionally, and that she'd been too fearful for her own safety to come forward. Only after they came looking for her did she tell investigators about an incident in 1990 when she claims Rodriguez said he was alone when he took a girl hunting, and that she wouldn't listen, so he hurt her, and that she didn't deserve that.
They give you and you just feel like you don't have no hope. I mean, some days they just like you're afraid and you can't even do nothing.
Margarita later recanted some of her statements to detectives. She never responded to our repeated requests for interview. But after seeing what she told detectives, another relative of Frank Merlos Rodriguez contacted detectives.
And I feel like he's been portrayed as this violent monster that did all this to Margarita when he didn't.
After that relative talked to investigators, they contacted us, sending me direct messages on Twitter saying Margarita Rodriguez is lying, and concluding how sad it is that Margarita and her family, quote, are getting away with this and blaming Frank for it.
I just feel like everything that they've gotten, they really haven't gotten from Frank's family.
This person doesn't want to be identified, but asked us to be more critical of Margarita's claims.
She knows that none of Frank's family members are going to come forward, and now all of a sudden, oh, wait till Frank dies and pin it all on him because he can't speak, and nobody's going to speak in his behalf.
This relative insists Frank and Margarita split up in 2009, questioning why Margarita wouldn't come forward before she did in 2015, if she had information critical to locating Rosemary. This relative says Margarita and Frank were married in 1988, 2 years before Rosemary went missing. They described Frank back in 1990 as a loving husband, crazy about his then wife, with whom he was still a newlywed. Further, they insist that if Margarita was abused, she had ample opportunity to cry out for help and never took it.
He was never violent or abusive. We as the family believe that she is lying and she is using the victim card. And her and her family had something to do with this. And why are they waiting to put it on Frank after Frank died?
Further, the relative of Frank's suggests it doesn't make sense that Frank would have been hunting alone when the kidnapping and murder of Rosemary is alleged to have occurred.
He would never go hunting by himself. it was always family members. They would always get together and go.
Now, you know this picture you're painting is very different from not just what Margarita has said, but what investigators have told us.
And I told him that it's wrong. Frank was never violent. He was never controlling. He never hit her, put a hand on her, or anything.
We went back to investigators with these claims.
Based on all the evidence that we have, I believe he's the one that did it.
Matagorda County Sheriff's Sergeant Randy Worthy insists Margarita Rodriguez's interview and answers are believable.
Nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors. A lot of the times when you see the family violence, it's directed towards one person, so other family members may never see it.
Is there any evidence that even in the slightest points to anyone else?
Not really. Not that we've seen. I mean, everything led us straight back to him.
Unfortunately, investigators will never get a chance to ask Frank Merlos Rodriguez about it. He died months before anyone came forward with information about Rosemary. As things stand, Rosemary's kidnapping and murder remains an open case. No one currently faces any charges.
We'll never know from him, and if somebody else doesn't come forward with something, we'll never know from, anybody else.
This case is proof that detectives need your help to solve crimes. If it weren't for a single tip, Rosemary might still be buried in a shallow, unmarked grave. Her family might still be wondering if she was alive. If you see something, they say something. It's never too late, whether the goal is to find Rosemary or someone else.